Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leslie Lang, and I'm the Director for Adult Learner Programs and Services at the Pennsylvania State University, University Park campus. And I'm so glad to welcome you to our session today. Who are we, and why does knowledge of our identity matter? As a friendly reminder today for our session, it is being recorded. It will be made available on the Whova platform for 3 months following today's event. We are also utilizing a Zoom format to encourage your participation. So you can turn your cameras on, but please remain muted until you're invited to speak. We also have a Q&A chat feature, which is available on the Whova platform. So in a separate window, we're going to do our best to monitor our chat and our questions for our presenter today so that everybody can remain engaged as a whole community on the Whova platform. For those of you joining us today by Zoom, I want to remind you that closed captioning is also made available to participants, and you can turn that on at any time during the presentation at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you Priya Babu. She is the Senior Director of Corporate and Industry Engagement for the College of Engineering, and she provides strategic leadership of all aspects of the industry partnerships, sponsored research, philanthropy, career and professional development for students, and Priya is also a doctoral student in the College of Ed. Welcome to everyone. I'm going to remind you that we have set the timer for 45 minutes today, and we will give you a 5-minute warning when we have 5 minutes left. Priya, I turn it over to you.
Hey, Leslie, thank you so much. That is a wonderful welcome, and I really, really appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so honored and privileged to be here today. I just wanted to say that I'm not going to give a lecture here. We're going to have a conversation, right? And so you will see that there is live poll in between the slides and the data that I'm going to share. So I would really, really appreciate if you provide feedback. So if you could have your phone or a computer ready, it should be super easy, but yeah, I'd like to keep it as interactive as possible. So with that, actually, I'm going to start with the live poll, right? Why not? Why not do that? So, pick up your phones or signaling devices, whatever you have, computers, and let's see who we have here with us in the room. Are you a first-generation student? Are you a first-generation graduate? Student support professional, administrator? If you would really, really, answer, that would be super great. Ooh, look at that. I like to watch how it moves. Okay, so it looks like everybody in the room today is supporting students, which is fantastic. Awesome. I'm going to give probably 5 more seconds. Okay, looks like everybody is supporting students. Fantastic. Okay, who am I? So, before we get started, I want to share with you my path. Who am I? What have I done? Why am I here? So just a few minutes before we go there, I am a proud first-gen student whose dreams, family support, and interest in breaking the cycle, we heard about it this morning in the keynote, enabled me to actually get my bachelor's and MBA in India. And then I came to Penn State to do my master's in supply chain, and I'm currently enrolled in the doctoral program in the College of Education. All of this, right, really led me to have a good career, which I really enjoyed, working in the consumer packaged goods and startup industry before coming to Penn State. So I've been in Penn State for the last 8 years. I've had some progressive growth in my roles, but currently I'm the corporate and industry engagement lead for the College of Engineering. So that's who I am. But why am I here, right? So you may be wondering, okay, I have a diverse background, but why am I here? That's because of my doctoral study and my identity as a first-generation student, right? So I am interested in studying what are the access challenges for first generation students. I have a personal experience being a first gen myself, and the challenges that I went through. But given my current experience or working for the College of Engineering in the industry engagement role, I'm also interested in seeing how industry can help reduce those challenges for first generation students. So that's the reason why we are here, why I am here. And like I said before, I just want to have a conversation with you about the complex definitions surrounding first generation students, their multiple identities, their access challenges, and what are some of the support needs. So that's basically what we're going to cover today. And, so let's start with what's happening in higher education, right? We heard it this morning too, and it's good to see that a lot of people are thinking about first generation students. You heard about it from the keynote this morning. Alejandra was talking about NASPA and the study that they had recently released. Actually, it was back in 2020, which says 1 in 2 undergraduates today are first generation students, right? And what does that mean in terms of the total population, the total size, right? So it's about 5 million students, give or take. And but what's interesting is that this number actually varies quite a bit when you look at other sources. So, if it is a study that is put forth by Forbes or a study from a different association or an institute, the number of first generation students in higher education varies, right? And why is this variation? Why do we have a variation in the data related to first generation students? And the reason is because there is no universal definition on who qualifies as a first generation student, right? So what I mean by that is when you look at the federal agencies, they do not align on a single definition. Basically, I'm just going to give you a couple of examples so you get a feel for what's going on here. So if you look at the National Center for Education Statistics, right? So they define us, first generation students, as those whose parents have no more than a high school education. So they're basically saying any student whose parents did not have a high school education is a first generation student. But if you look at the TRIO programs, right? So the federal outreach and student services programs designed to identify and support individuals from different backgrounds, the TRIO programs actually define first generation students as those whose parents have not completed a bachelor's degree. So, so look at the difference, right? So Center for Education Statistics says student whose parents did not have a high school education, and TRIO programs or TRIO program says students whose parents have not completed a bachelor's degree. So, so what's big about the varying definitions, you might ask? The basic fact that there is a variation in definition between even just these two federal agencies shows the complexity of identifying first generation students and serving them, right? So how do we provide interventions? How do we provide programs to support first generation students? Now, those need to be looked at in greater detail because of the diversity or the challenges that exist in defining first generation students. So this is on the federal side, right? So when you look at it from a higher education institution standpoint, we do not align on a single definition either. So again, just to provide a few examples, Penn State, right? We define students, first generation students, as those whose immediate parents or guardians have not completed a baccalaureate or a bachelor's degree, right? So that's what Penn State defines. And if you look at Brown, they basically include students who self-identify themselves as having no prior exposure or knowledge of navigating higher education. So again, see the differences that exist in defining who we are across higher education institutions, right? One more example, and then we'll move on. So if you look at Harvard, they define first-generation students as those who will be first in their immediate families to graduate from a four-year college or equivalent degree. So what does this all mean? It basically shows that we do not have alignment on who we define as first-generation students across federal agencies, across higher education institutions. And so you might ask, so what's in the definition? Why is it such a big problem? And I want to actually bring up a study that Todd Kashyan and his colleagues conducted. It's about my generation defining first-generation students in higher education research. And Dr. Todd Kashyan is very well known for this study. And there are so many citations for this particular study, and we'll see why that is the case. So basically, what he did was he conducted a study of 7,300 students. And the motivation for the study was to understand how do we operationalize measures for first-generation students in statistical models to understand who they are, how do we support them, how do we get help, or how do the students get help from federal, state, and institutional support programs, and how do we provide some consistency in how we talk about first-generation students. So that was the motivation for the study. And basically what you're seeing here, by way of charts is, you're seeing eight different combinations, right? And basically the 1G4YR basically means that it categorizes anybody that has at least one parent or guardian that has attended a four-year degree. And then G stands for graduated, A stands for attended, 1G 2-year means somebody who graduated a 2-year associate's degree, and then so on and so forth. So basically he included 7,300 students, both first gen and non-first gen, to try and understand, how the definition varies for first-generation students, when you take into account different variations. And, interestingly, what he found was, if you include the definition of just one or both parents who did not earn a four-year degree, about 20% of the 7,300 students were first-generation students. But on the other hand, if you look at both parents and you define them as both parents that did not attend either a 2-year college or a 4-year college, that number goes up to 77%. And now you see the complexity, hopefully, that is stemming from the ambiguity surrounding definition and how this might have an impact on the programs that we are creating, the policies that we are implementing, both at the government as well as the institutional level. So, hopefully I've made the case for why aligning on a definition is important, because otherwise we are looking at students that are very broad and may potentially have, slightly varying needs. So with that, I want to actually go to a poll, quick question to see if you know, or you know of someone who knew when who knew when they were a first generation student. So because of the definition complexity and what is surrounding the ambiguity surrounding the definition, if there are first generation students in the group, okay, after coming to college, that's interesting. Okay, in high school, yeah, that's good. So 80% of us in the room here, we didn't know that we were first generation students until we came to college, right? So again, this goes back to the complexity surrounding definitions, and we both at the federal level and at the institutional level, us not aligning on a definition, right? So yeah, that's good to know. So we talked about complexity in the definitions. I want to talk about multiple identities, because the complexity in definitions and the multiple identities actually have an impact on, or influence the needs and challenges faced by first generation students. So let's talk about multiple identities, right? So who am I? I want to provide a better context on the identity part by taking myself as an example. And then we'll talk about what's going on, what literature is saying, what are we seeing here in this room, etc. So I am a person of color, right? I am a cisgender woman. I am an immigrant from India who's a proud United States citizen. But you see that I don't have a single identity. I have multiple identities. And I can also add the fact that, I'm a working professional, but I'm also a student. So again, what you're seeing here is like multiple identities, right? So, if I were to take that to what's going on here in this room, how many identities do we all have? Just curious. Do we think we have just one, multiple? Give us your feedback. What do you think? Wow. Yeah. It's good to see that we all acknowledge the multiple identities we have, right? And so if you actually take that to what are our identities, and again, oops. Okay, no, I'm having issues with my Slido. Okay, let's skip that. I was going to ask what are our identities, and actually it's a open text poll. So if you can type in your answers, it should pop up as a word cloud. Thank you for working with me on this.
Priya, it's Jen. If you don't mind me inserting myself, I've heard from a couple of people who aren't sure where to go to access your polls.
Yeah, so on the left-hand side of the slide, you see join at slido.com. So you just go to slido.com and then put in the number, or you can actually, use the QR code on the top, and you will be able to put in information.
Great. Thanks, Priya.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, that's nice. First gen, middle class, veteran, thank you for your service. Male, middle-aged, Christian, educated, mom. It's fantastic. We'll give it probably a few more seconds and then move on. Okay, I still see people typing. Yeah. Lifelong learner, love that. Cisgender, yes. Pansexual. Fantastic. Keep them coming. White, middle class, woman. Okay, thank you. Neurodiverse, able-bodied, love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. So as you can see, the point that I'm trying to make here is we all have multiple identities, right? But when you look at it from a first generation student standpoint, we all tend to conflate first generations to students to a monolithic group, right? Like, yet they are very, very diverse. And what I mean by monolithic or homogeneous group is that, we always think of the students as belonging to a particular race or a particular ethnicity. And, I'm just going to pull up a chart here that shows, how first generation students vary by different ethnicity, right? So what you're seeing here, and again, this is from a study that was published in Forbes Advisor back in 2023, last year actually. So what you're seeing is 46% of the students are white, and then but there is a good mix in the in the ethnicity of the first generation students there. And what you're seeing is basically 54% of them belong to multiple race and ethnic groups, right? But unfortunately, when we talk about first generation students, we tend to conflate them to a homogeneous group. And actually, when you also look at it from a standpoint of, how they are in terms of the different groups that they belong to, yes, like, just like the poll answers that we got, the word cloud that we got, you have women, you have men, you have LGBTQIA, you have immigrant students, student veterans, Native Americans, students coming from low-income backgrounds, middle class. So there is a good diversity within first generation students. The point that I'm trying to make here is that we tend to think of first generation students as a homogeneous group, but in truth, they are actually very, very diverse. And what this means for us as practitioners, and as we talk about or think about programs and interventions to help support them, is that there is no one size fits all approach, right? Because that approach will not meet the needs of all students, because we see that there is diversity in the social, cultural, and economic backgrounds of the students that are part of the first generation group here. So we need to keep that in mind as we think about how to help first generation students navigate college. And even before that, how do we reduce the access challenges for the first generation students? I think, we talked about multiple identities, but I want to actually move on to access challenges and talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges that first generation students face, especially when they are trying to access college, which is something that is completely new to them, right? Let's go to access challenges and basically see what literature says about the access challenges. And I want to then come back to get your thoughts, and we can talk a little bit about what are some things that we can do to support them. But when you think of literature and what are some access challenges that existing research that is done on first generation students talks about college readiness. What do we mean by college readiness, right? So it's basically first generation students need to prepare, right? And that is true for all students, but any student that has an interest in attending college must prepare academically by taking proper classes and getting a sufficiently high grade point average, particularly if they wish to attend a selective school, right? But if you look at it from a first generation student's perspective, they do not have proper guidance on from their families or from their network, in most cases, on what classes to take in their high school, and what is the importance of even taking things like AP courses to gain entry into a four-year college, or if they want to do even an associate's degree, what are some of the courses they need to take? That information, that support is not available to first generation students. You can even extrapolate that to say these students do not even have a good understanding of college admissions exams like ACT, SAT, etc. So many of these students are going through a college application process without any guidance or with little guidance. And they're not able to rely on their parents because they are the first in their families, most likely. And they're not able to access resources that are vital to the admissions process. So yes, COVID-19, had made or forced some of the institutions to make the ACT and SAT exams optional, but several universities are bringing it back and making it mandatory again. So this is a real challenge for first generation students, and really, really important one that needs to be addressed and needs to be supported so they are able to navigate this complexity, which they don't have enough information on. The next big challenge, I would say, from an access standpoint, and I'm clubbing a lot of things together here, is informational challenges, right? So what do we mean by that? It's sort of like is an umbrella term that I'm collating here to include information about the admissions process, information about the costs for attending college, information about the financial aid systems. Even if it is if parents attended college in another country, right? The college process there could be completely different from what it is here in the United States. So they will not have information on how to navigate the admissions process, how to access information about the costs of the higher education system here, what are some ways to secure financial aid. So all important pieces of information is not readily available to them. So there is huge complexity surrounding the college admissions process, the financial aid systems, and the lack of accurate information about higher education costs. And that is mainly because of their parents and their support system not having some of the information that their continuing generation peers might have, non-first gen students might have in their arsenal. So again, from a financial aid standpoint, because this is a big piece of the puzzle, right? There is not much awareness around the two main forms that exist, right? So one is the CSS profile that helps students get non-federal institutional aid, and the FAFSA, right? The FAFSA, as we all know, underwent a multitude of changes last year, and it still has changes, right? It is supposed to be a simplified application system now, but yet it has challenges, and with all good thinking to simplify the process, it is still complex from a first generation student's perspective. And to add to that, if you think of other application materials that are needed, like even the personal essays that needs to be written, right? So, there is complexity surrounding that because of lack of information or lack of complete information surrounding what needs to be done related to a personal essay, things like that. So, these are just challenges. Again, just an overview in the limited amount of time we have to talk about what are some of the big challenges that cause stress and create anxiety for first generation students. And it isn't by any means a comprehensive overview here, but at least touches upon some of the key challenges that exist for first generation students. So having said that, I want to get your perspective on what you faced if you're a first generation student in terms of challenges, or if you know of a friend who is a first generation student, what are some of the challenges they faced? So if you could, go to the poll. And again, the process is join at slido.com, key in the number, and if you can tell us what challenges you faced as a student, first generation student, or someone faced as a first generation student, it'll be great to understand. Okay. Yeah, and in this poll, I made it so we all can, select all challenges that we faced. So that's why you're seeing more numbers than the number of participants here in the room. But yeah, high cost of tuition, right? Hands down, that's one of the biggest challenges. Yeah, it's unfortunate that tuition is the cost of tuition is rising, and there is complexity surrounding financial aid applications, navigating college application process. Yeah, that's what the first generation students are facing, right? We'll give a few more seconds. Thank you for all your feedback. I do plan to, given my focus on first generation students and reducing access challenges for them, I want to use this information also to supplement some of the things that we get from literature as I progress more on doing some research on first generation students and access challenges as part of my doctoral program. So I really appreciate you giving some feedback here. So the next slide is also going to talk about challenges, but it is more of a, if you didn't see some of the challenges that you had in mind listed in the previous page, what are they? If you want to type it in, again, the idea is to understand, get a good feel for what are some of the challenges that first generation students face. That'd be fantastic. So you can type in any challenge that you didn't see in the previous page and want to really make it known that something was a challenge. Okay, student housing, hidden curriculum. Still a few people typing, so we wait a few seconds. Finding community. Almost anything can be petitioned. Importance of taking higher level courses at high school. Thank you for saying that. Having someone to talk to at home about struggles and wins. Yeah, this is something that Alejandra touched on this morning, right? So she actually spent a lot of time talking about this, being isolated and not being able to share, imposter syndrome. She talked about that. Yeah, not knowing what clubs and organizations to join. So all the things that you are putting in here, again, is going to be helpful for the community that is here, that are supporting students and, people like myself and others that are there as we look at programs within Penn State and what can we do to support. So these are all going to give us some good feedback on, what are other challenges that we need to be mindful of, and how can we put some things together to support, right? Yeah, still have a couple typing, so. Okay, it's winding down. Social and emotional pressures. Struggle to find friends at Penn State. Yeah, feeling left out. Thank you for sharing that. Again, the these challenges, the listing, it's going to be helpful for practitioners like, me included, and so many others that are here in the room to support first generation students, right? And one more, and we move on. What is one significant challenge? Is there something that you would say, okay, this one was very significant that it really stumped me and did not allow me to, succeed or really impacted college access for me? What is it? Yeah, again, if you can type it in, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, understanding how to pay for college and manage student debt. So this, again, not here to overpromise or do things, but I think the feedback here is going to be helpful as we look at practitioners look at what can be done to support first generation students and their success, right? Not understanding that. Yeah. Not really understanding the amount of time outside of the classroom is needed for study or homework. Totally get it. Been there, done that. So, yeah. Not realizing I could look for and apply for scholarships, where to look for them. Somebody typing one more. Okay, cost of applying to college. Yes, it's not cheap, right? Declining an institution would not want a student like me. Or deciding an institution that would not want a student like me, not even submitting an application. Okay. Oh my God, this is great feedback for people like us. And I'm sure this, like Leslie said, this recording will be available for, is it 30 days or 90 days, Leslie? The recording of the presentation is available
3 months. They're going to have
3
3 months
months
access.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think this is all valuable feedback for Penn State, right? As we start thinking about how do we refine some of the programs we have, how do we tweak some of the interventions we have to help you succeed. So thank you for the feedback. So as we get closer to time, I want to just sort of like recap all the things that we talked about that we know so far, either from literature or from things that we have seen based on your responses, is complexities exist around definition. We talked about why it is important to align on a definition, or at least acknowledge that there is a lot of ambiguity surrounding the definition, and there is a influence based on the complexity around defining who is a first generation student and its impact on the programs and other things that we create. I think we also need to acknowledge that first generation students is not homogeneous. It's such a diverse group. There are so many students that belong to the overarching umbrella of first generation, and acknowledging that diversity is extremely critical to knowing that there are needs and challenges that could be similar, but they could be diverse at the same time. So again, wanted to talk about some of the access challenges, because that is my big focus, as part of my doctoral program. And part of the reason, because I've been in community with a lot of first generation students, and one of the things that I heard loud and clear is the cost of tuition and, navigating the application process and navigating the financial aid process. So those were some of the challenges that keep coming up all the time. And we saw that loud and clear today as well. I think we need to really acknowledge the complexities surrounding this group and the needs and challenges could be similar and diverse at the same time. So what does that mean for people like me, people like the student support professionals that are there as part of this in this room with us today? A couple things, and again, these are not meant to be the be all and end all, but intended to create additional thoughts, help you ponder over your areas in your specific work, responsibilities, what you can do in your own way to help support first generation students. And one thing that came to, or at least was evident from some of the responses that was given to the polls is outreach and working with high school counselors on enhancing knowledge on the courses that needs to be taken, the advanced placement courses, or even SAT exams and things like that, right? So I think there was a comment even on didn't know what are some of the advanced level courses that I need to take as part of high school. So again, loud and clear in terms of outreach and working collaboratively with high school counselors. But again, some of the other things that has come up in my conversations with the first gen community is creating awareness of financial aid resources. And also, not many of us, not many of the first generation students are aware of student affairs and academic advising professionals that are there within a college or a university. So, yes, we're doing what we can, but I think more needs to be done in terms of creating awareness of the resources that exist, especially from a financial aid standpoint, and also from a standpoint of resources that already exist within a particular university. So I want to end with just one final poll to get your perspectives, right? And again, this is an open-ended question, so you can feel free to text away. Want to understand what are your thoughts? What do you do currently, or what do you want to do based on some of the things that you know today, not just from my the conversation with me, but based on all the things that you've heard today. What are some things that you want to do or you're already doing? Type away, please. Again, these are thought starters, right? So we can make changes in our own small way, and bite-sized changes that would actually go to the collective common good of supporting first generation students. Hey, I'm excited to see what you think. Outreach, video reels. Yeah, it's great. I have multiple screens, and so that's why you see me looking here and there, but create more visibility for groups and experiences. Yeah. What else? What else is in your mind? Or what else are you doing? It's good to see so many of us thinking about supporting first generation students, and the fact that Penn State can do an event like this is really intriguing and exciting. Promote first generation activities, absolutely. Launched a startup to address all of this with 100% focus on first generations. Yeah, it's great.
Absolutely. We love this last poll that you put up. And it speaks to the 3 comments and chats in your Q&A. One acknowledges what you said about the complexities of the whole process for first gen and how the nuances could be. You have a parent from another country who has a PhD, but they've never navigated that here, and what that looks like, the application process here, or what those forms are called. And so that's a matter of providing information and guidance to the parents who are preparing as well, along with the new definition or a broader definition, or to allow people to opt in because of those definitions. Another comment we had was asking earlier that several of the sessions today mentioned the informational challenges like you did, which are challenges for most all of Penn State students, and they don't necessarily have to be first gen. And so that overlap is there. And
Yep.
wanted to know what our top resources were that might help or teach students about the Penn State system or navigating the language. And so that was a very good prop too, because you did bring up the fact that student affairs, our academic advising offices, our admissions offices, our new student orientation programs, all help to indoctrinate the students and give them a path. So I think that was helpful too to hear from your presentation today. And I believe there was one more. One was language, one was about the PhD. What are the most challenging aspects for first generation students that many seem to relate or share with one another? But you did overlay and tell us that access to challenges, the barriers for first gen, the complexities of all the definitions, as well as their multiple identities. Did you have anything else that you would like to add or to that challenge?
Yeah, no, this is great, right? Like there are so many challenges, and that's part of my research, right? I'm trying to really get my head wrapped around what are some challenges that are talked about quite a bit in literature, but some are not talked about yet, right? So I would love to be in conversation with anybody that has an interest in first generation students, not just from a standpoint of talking about challenges, but really thinking about what to do to reduce it, right? So that's why my research is focused on not just identifying what are the access challenges and grouping them into appropriate categories, but it's also about how can industries support and reduce those challenges for first generation students, right? So we all know that financing college and financial challenges is a big one. And, I'm really, truly interested in seeing how industry can support because of my responsibility in terms of working with industry to build partnerships, whether it is for research or for recruiting students, for internships, full-time opportunities, et cetera. So again, I think it's we're just scratching the surface, even though there's a lot that has been done already to support. But there are a lot of overlaps between the challenges faced by first-gen students and non-first-gen students too. So we can actually pick up things that we're doing for students in general and and make some tweaks for first-generation students to make it even more appealing and making it easy for them. So
absolutely, I think you're correct when you say we have to make tweaks. We have to go back to educating the employers, right? That the people that they employ sometimes who don't have degrees need those educational benefits. I would say that finance is number one, right? We agreed that finance is a hard thing, but if your parents are working and they have a job that offers educational benefits, guess what? That's going to help that first gen student go to college. So I think educating those industry people, I think transparency on the level of the colleges, what we're looking for and how we can be of help and guide students ahead of the admissions process with our partnerships in industry, with the high schools and the businesses and the teachers and school districts. I think you also hit on good points for your dissertation and your study talking about community guidance. All of us, even if we don't have that specific job responsibility or title, we have spheres of influence where we can implement and educate and listen to students who are navigating these challenges and support all of those things that you covered today. I love the polls that you did, Priya, and I hope that you'll share them with us. I hope all of our participants today will go back and view and share the resources. For 3 months, they'll be available on the Whova platform. And we thank everyone for remembering to complete their session evaluation at the end of this presentation. You can go right on to the session agenda page and Whova and click rate the session. We also appreciate session evaluations, and you can access them all on the surveys page or use the main navigation button to give us session feedback. We hope that everybody enjoyed the First Generation Summit today and that you will tell others about it and go back and share those recordings and join us in the mission of educating and supporting our large community of first generation students. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so
recording.
much.